A third time. The third time's a charm. I almost know what I'm doing here. I'm going to break up the familial uh, response and the familial obligation to speak and jump ahead to applying for the Peace Corps and uh, doing uh, uh, going into Peace Corps training, which occupied us for the 2 years we were in Peace Corps. We were still trying to decipher what the hell did we go through in Peace Corps training. It was certainly one of the most intensive things I ever did in my whole life. I think we were 8 or 9 weeks in Escondido, California, uh, just a little bit north of San Diego. Escondido's an avocado growing place and grapes and vineyards now, and wasn't then. Uh, this place was out towards Mount Palomar in the mountains, actually a converted nudist camp where the married couples, I would say they were about 40% of our group, were living. They had the deluxe accommodations around the swimming pool, and us boys were up uh, on a flattened plateau above them in army barracks. Uh, Four dudes to a John, and uh, it was really uh, a life changing experience for me. So that was January of 1968 when we gathered together there at the bus station in San Diego and rendezvoused and caught this charter bus up the mountain to this Centro de Entrenamiento, the center of training. And it was complete Spanish immersion from 7 in the morning till 9 at night, although we all cheated, of course. And certainly I was not in one of the higher groups, nor were either one of my roommates, Mike Brady and Jim Tushin, at that time. They uh, weren't the best Spanish students, nor was I. So we tried to do our best, and throughout this time, we were bombarded by a whole series of psychological tests. I would say at least it seemed like 2 dozen, I would guess, far beyond the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory and other primal tests that I had taken on various occasions in my life as my mother tried to figure out why I was an underachiever and tested well, but didn't play the game well in school. And we uh, were under tremendous pressure. We'd also have cross cultural learning, and there was a married couple there that had been in the Peace Corps in Bolivia and DeWitt, the DeWitts. And Pete Gendabine was our leader, and Pete had been a volunteer in Peru building bridges and significant structures, and he was preparing us for sending us down into the jungle to do similar tasks that he had. And he was an excellent leader and helped us a lot. We all grew there and became very, very close. And Beth Lind, who's still one of my dearest friends who lives in Boulder. Um, Beth read me and her husband at the time, Eric, the book Dune every night. And I'd kind of hide out in their room and break away from my two roommates and uh, share with them. And I did throughout my life, and even being so brain damaged to go down and try and set up a gold dredge with Eric Lind, who this was years later, and I think Larry and Audrey Lemon, Audrey being my cousin and Larry being our crew chief, the civil engineer for our roving construction team. They had married and were living. Larry was road construction consulting in out of Huancayo, Peru. So Eric was uh, kind of a big problem. He had demons, all sorts of demons, and it scared me, and I didn't want to deal with it. Anyhow, I appreciated them, and if you didn't stand back a little bit from Eric, you were going to get in trouble because he got into a lot of trouble in his life. Anyhow, Peace Corps training was quite an impressive thing. One of the things that um, amazed me was I was not intimidated by authority, and I would stand up to the people in authority, and if I didn't agree with what they were saying, I'd say I didn't agree. Uh, other We had a strange phenomenon that we got kind of trapped into. We didn't know what the hell was happening, and all of a sudden we had to do peer noms. We had to rate our 5 most successful volunteers and our 5 least successful volunteers. Well, we didn't know that this was coming at us, and uh, it barely functioned the first time, but I was one of the people that they thought wouldn't be successful, and had an extra meeting or maybe two with the shrink. And he thought my uh, ability to stand up to authority was a positive trait for the Peace Corps, and my assuredness, that uh, I was in the right place and doing the right thing. So at that time, uh, amazing things happen. They take us down in the middle of Baja and drop us off with our backpack, Swiss Army knife, and jockstrap, and tell us to analyze communities to see where the power positions were, and numerous other checklists of basic uh, community development work. And it was really something. There had been an earthquake. This psychic woman had predicted that uh, Baja Columbia was going to fall in the ocean, and damned if we weren't down there in San Diego, and had the biggest earthquake they've had in some time, and the trays rattled off the floor in the cafeteria, and the chandeliers started swinging, and holy schmoly, it was really my first time in a California earthquake. It's scary business. So uh, along we went on our journeys and bringing people in from Bolivia. I'm an extraordinarily volunteer named Vickers Ridley who had gone native and lived in a very rural Quechua village where they made their own clothes from their animals and had 100% sustenance living from the land. And the guy in charge of the Cochabamba office while I was working out of there wanted me to replace Vickers Ridley. And we tried to ford this river, which was one of the simpler crossings you had to get to Vickers' site, and then a 4 mile hike into the boondocks, or five, I think seven, I don't remember. But we almost lost the Jeep floating down the river where the current carried the Jeep for maybe 100 yards before we got control of it. And we're all on one side and we're able to push the thing back out of the river and then avoid uh, going there. Anyhow, my Bolivian stories will go on and on. And I love and appreciate this ability through my cousin Steve to be able to tell my yarns and record them. Vickers Ridley, he was really something, man. At the same time we were in Peace Corps training there, were 4 or 5 very specialized men that were being trained in Quechua, I believe. And they were all good Spanish speakers. And we were very suspicious that they were being trained by the CIA, but God forbid you never would cross the Peace Corps with the CIA. That would be the death knell for the Peace Corps. So after 8 or 9 weeks of living there in Escondido, occasionally escaping into the city, and I think there was a gratuitous trip to Tijuana, where I'm sure we all dragged it in the dirt a little. Uh, we were on our way to Detroit. We were trained in a very unique experience by the UAW, and Sal was the guy's first name, and he was president of a big union in the Central Valley, Sal Tovares. And he had a nasty job, very political. Of course, he was used to all that stuff. And we went off to Detroit to be trained at the Detroit Skills Center, a hardcore educational facility for the unemployed. And on an adjoining piece of open ground, we built I don't know if it was 1,200 square foot, something like that, 10,000 adobe bricks after we finally got the right clay level that could make good adobes. And that's where I'll stop the story today, building that building. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you. Hey, well, good morning from the North Valley in Albuquerque. Uh, Things are rolling along here pretty good. Uh, um, we finished up yesterday with talking about the uh, building of the house on the vacant lot in the middle of the ghetto in Detroit. That was a very interesting time, extraordinarily stressful. There was a full-time shrink observing us both in Escondido and here in Detroit and in the North Woods too, of how we would react under stress, all sorts of things. The guys never stopped taking notes. And after my initial talk at Escondido, the shrink never bothered me, thank God. And it was a very intimidating thing to have them doubt you psychologically. So while in Detroit, I lived on West Grand Boulevard at the Mexican Puerto Rican boarding house with my buddy, Woody Johnson. And he had quite a moniker, Woodrow Truman Johnson, 3 presidents in one name. Woody uh, went to an agricultural and technical school in South Carolina, I believe. And we were thrown in together with the Mexicans hating the Puerto Ricans hating the Mexicans, et cetera, et cetera. And after we built the house, uh, they had another project for us up in the North Woods. And all through the time that we were building the house, we were bombarded by significant heavy duty cats and sanitary engineering and all sorts of different how to build stairs, some things I had known, some things it was handy to have the refresher on. And so we went up to the North Woods to the Rifle River. Before we leave Detroit, though, there were several significant things that happened there. Taylor Hackford talked us into going to hear Cream at the Grandee Ballroom. And that was really an amazing experience. And then hearing John Lee Hooker live in his little club there. And just Detroit was really ravaged at that time. Uh, the whole downtown was seedy and not good, and it's been a remarkable reformation, reconstruction of Detroit, and the rebuilding of its image as a place to raise a family. I don't know, I'm sure there's terrible parts of Detroit, and it isn't safe as it isn't in many of our cities to go out after night. Susie and I don't like going out after night, especially in our senior years now. We never did much nightclubbing though, or going out and drinking or stuff like that. We're uh, Friday nights in Woodstock though. We rarely mixed fish fry at the Watering Hole Uncle Dan's, and preceded by the Knights of Columbus, and later on by the Elk. My mom liked hanging out. The working class people went to the Moose, and the business people went to the Elks. And mom became the first Elkette, not doe, but she became a full elk, and the first one in our town with another lady. So I wane. I'll go up to the Rifle River at the Boy Scout canoe base. We were living in simple white floorless tents, sleeping on cots, and they had given us our sleeping bags, which you really didn't need too much in the summer in Michigan, but it was handy to have to give you a little cover. And we ate our meals in town, and they'd load us up in 2-ton stake bed trucks, farm trucks, open, and then haul us into town. And gosh, it was a wet summer that summer, and it rained a lot, and we got rained on a lot. Weren't dry a lot, but we did get the bridge built. I tried to hang out over there as much as I could, but occasionally I get drafted for other projects. There, Pete Genevieve kind of ran the whole camp, and the DeWitts were there, a Peace Corps couple that had served in Bolivia. And there were also a series of other smaller projects, including, 3, 4 hole latrines and 6 stall shower room. And at the end of the project, the masonry guy, finishing around drains can be a little tricky. You have to, a shower room like that, you have to taper to every drain in the floor. So the floor wasn't flat. It was consisting of 6 tapering slants down to the drain hole. And so he said, I heard you know something about concrete finishing, Mr. Air. And so he put me on this project, and thank God, I guess I did a credible job and I passed. Um, so I think it was like the 16th of July. We left for Bolivia. There were a few days in between, and I think Woody came back with me to LaGrange. There might have been one or two other people. I don't know. We had camping at our place. And the night before I left, I picked up on this woman who my friend Jimmy Woods had dated once or twice. He really wasn't romantically involved with her. And her and I started sparking, and we had a real meaningful interaction. Wasn't one of those things the next day I'm going to Bolivia and she's going off another direction, going away to college at the end of that summer. And we ended up on the top of this flat roof shelter in Bemis Woods there, and laying out on the flat concrete, looking up at the stars and just talking and making out, necking, I guess. And when I got to Bolivia, one of my first letters was from her. And she said that every mosquito bite she had on her reminded her of me. And it was just a real nice, poetic way of thinking of me. And I appreciated it. Uh, she never lasted 2 years, though. She wanted to get married, and I think she was married before I came back from Bolivia. So that was my Peace Corps training that so fascinated us for years into the future. We were a really anointed Peace Corps group. They really thought highly of us. And Jack Vaughan, the Peace Corps director, and Walter Reuther, one of the founders of the AFL-CIO, and they let us use the executive showers and workout facilities of the UAW while we were there. And so we had a swimming pool and an exercise gym and stuff where we could go to. Most of the time after working construction all day, you didn't worry about doing more exercise, though. So I'm going to make this a little shorter one, just on finishing up the training experience. And then I'll start up getting off the plane in Bolivia and continue on from there. This is number 5, I believe. Thank you. God bless you.